Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Need to Nerd, and a special episode, because if I'm not mistaken, West, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is, even with our old co-hosts, this is our first episode with a guest.
Correct.
And our guest is none other than the commissioner of the Heezy Game Media Fantasy Football League, newly engaged Paddy B MTG.
Thank you for that fabulous introduction, Spencer. I don't think I could be any more hyped up.
I have a question. Is that the best introduction you've ever received in your life?
It's the best introduction. I've had better curtain calls for like shows and stuff.
Ooh. Well, I can't do a curtain call right now, so.
Yeah, that's fair, because we're at the beginning of the podcast.
Where's the curtain? Anyone got a curtain?
But I'll make curtains appear at the end of the show this week. Don't worry.
And do it in post.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it in post. Paddy, it is so nice to have you. The first thing that I want to say is it's really cool to see kind of the differences in things going on in the Discord lately. We have a really small Discord right now, especially when you looked at things like the CCMTG Discord, the CCMTG Facebook group, where most of these people are coming from. But it's really cool. You know, we have your new fiance, Shelby, congratulations, in there just basically for fantasy football and being in that fantasy football league with us. And we have, Matt Kling, who's literally just in there for Smash. You know, so it's got these sections of people in it, and it's really cool to see it grow. And it's really cool to have you on, Paddy, because honestly, the fantasy football league wouldn't have happened this year without you, and I think people were really excited about it. So I really want to publicly say thank you, especially because it means that Wes has to go click that channel every so often if he wants that notification to go away.
I just learned the Marcus Red function for a Discord server, Spencer.
I don't know what that
Don't
is.
make me use it.
Oh,
I should use that.
I'm kidding. It's useful, but I'm not going to do it with the Heezy Game Media server.
it's too close to your heart.
I feel like I'd be letting our fans down.
Sure. I also just want to give a kind of a shout out to the new influx of listeners over the last couple shows. It's been really cool to see. I've been sending funny random stats to West, and we kind of talked about the number of countries that we impact. And next week I will give West a full day breakdown of countries again in the pre-show for mic check, so that we can get a live reaction from him. But we've definitely added some countries this week. And I just want to shout out the people listening. It's really cool to see people from around the world, different backgrounds, listening to just a show that we can all come together, and have this need to nerd together. It's really cool.
Yeah. And whatever ego I have managed to keep a hold of, keep it afloat, please.
Yeah, I could say that the Discord is very diverse place.
Yeah,
you're totally on point there.
It was so cool too, because I would definitely say that Shelby joined the Discord to be a part of the Fantasy Football League, but Shelby actually ended up playing in a Smash room with us not too long ago. So it's nice to have a small Discord. I've actually gotten multiple messages from people in the Discord that have said, I really love that this Discord is so small. I really love that everybody in it, if you post something, somebody is going to give you a meaningful interaction, and it's not just a wall of text all the time. So it's been great. And I just want to say thank you, Paddy, for being a part of that, because that Fantasy Football League would not have happened without you, because I just didn't have time this year.
Yeah, fantasy, just a random aside is I actually really haven't touched Magic Arena or any Magic since fantasy football season started, because I devote myself to it.
You gotta love it.
And,
I actually have a culture question now. So you spend time poring over your fantasy football team like you would brewing a deck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listening
fantasy
to
football is a lot.
Yeah.
No, I get it. There's stuff there. That is a level of depth I was not previously associating with fantasy football.
If this podcast on YouTube gets 20 likes, Just 20.
Spencer, you about to volunteer my time?
Just 20. I will make West play fantasy football next year.
Woof. And I have to wait so long to get this punishment?
It's just D&D. You'll love it. It's the same thing.
D&D. Just you wait until
I'll give you breakfast every week for a football season.
Get written
I'll give you
about
breakfast.
fantasy football.
I'll give you breakfast every week for a football season. It will be fine.
You'll give me breakfast every week for a football season?
Yeah, I do brunch and we watch the football games and track our fantasy stats together. Trust me, it's a great time.
Next year, if we can do this together, I will be. Well, just remind me that how impossible that seemed.
Right? COVID.
Oh man, don't say that. This week is actually not about fantasy football. It's not about the Discord, but we did want to mention those things just because we had Paddy here, and we had to hype up and love our first guest. But
also, I've learned that all the big name podcasts out there, their intros take forever.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. But I want to give us a nerd fact of the week. And today's nerd fact of the week is biology based because I think that fun facts are nerdy and I enjoy them. And so, here you go. All mammals hold approximately 20 seconds of urine at a max inside of their bladder, West.
Cool.
That is an impressive thing across multiple species. I don't know why you don't.
I agree that that's pretty crazy, but maybe that has more to do with there's this genetic thing about what the absolute maximum there is proportional to body size or something that they can hold on to.
That is probably what it is. Also, I was trying to give you something that you wouldn't like, and it worked, so that Paddy B could give us a nerd fact about this week's topic, which is Hocus Pocus. Paddy B, for this week's nerd fact of the week, give us a fact that people might not know about Hocus Pocus.
Okay, I got you there. I've got plenty of fun facts that we can interject in different spots here. The one that I will share here is that Leonardo DiCaprio actually auditioned for the role of Max and did not get the role.
Dude,
Max is the lead character.
That is super crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I think I know why. And before we move on to the rest of the show, I want to ask West a question because West, you actually watched this
ages ago. It's been forever.
For the first time, literally 15 minutes ago.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a question for you.
All along.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Did you notice that the person who played Max the person was not actually the voice of Max the person during your first watch?
I don't think it stood out. But that's crazy.
Is it Max or?
I'm sorry, not Max. I messed this so much up right now, people.
Are we talking about the Jinx or the?
I am talking about Jinx.
Zachary Binks.
Zachary Binks, yeah.
I did not know that. I only knew that because of reading the source of Paddy B's wisdom. Which I can skim
also, we're leaving that in the podcast. Wes just watched this literally minutes ago, and I'm the one that got the characters mixed up.
Yeah. And it's your favorite.
I watched it literally minutes ago. It's fresh. I'm also looking at the IMDb
It is my favorite Halloween movie for what it's worth.
Right now.
I am actually surprised that Leo didn't get that part though. But the thing is Bette Midler had to have been expensive for this movie's budget.
Yeah, I think that by and large the names here were it was how do we know that the people in Harry Potter were going to be really important, right?
Yeah, they went big names.
But then this movie flopped instead, so the potential was there, but it just didn't convert. Leonardo's agent knew this was a flop. That's my guess, and just like was like, tank it.
Knew it was a flop. Ooh, ooh. The disrespect for my favorite Halloween movie ever started. And speaking of which,
first off, every best Halloween movie ever was a flop. First of all,
that's how they become cult classics.
Yeah,
like Rocky Horror.
Yeah, exactly, like Rocky Horror.
Ooh, that one's up there for me too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why we picked this movie. So I don't want to take up all of the Halloween content on this podcast every October to the point where like we're scratching the bottom of the barrel. So I only want to do one Halloween based podcast each October, and this was the one that I picked for this year. And obviously Wes will get a pick next year, and then it'll be my year, and so on and so forth.
Also, who could handle like I can add like one bit of like Halloween to the existential dread. I don't think I can pile it on. Not this Halloween.
Yeah, that's
right. The horror is too real.
Hashtag 2020 problems. But I want to get into our first thoughts. And I have a lot. So I'd like to go first, if that's okay with our guest Paddy B. As I picked this episode, and one of the reasons that I actually wanted to bring on a guest that loved it, I hoped as much as I do, was because I was actually afraid that West was going to hate this movie.
Oh my god, I love camp.
But this film is my number one Halloween movie, probably followed by the third Halloween Town.
Oh,
so like
I now know why you thought I wasn't going to like this film.
So for me, like this movie encompasses things that I found scary as a kid, things that I found funny growing up. Like I watched this film every year for the most part growing up. I mean, when you look at, you know, when this film came out in 93, like this is when I was starting to be able to watch movies. You know, my son's in that place right now where like he can sometimes.
I did not exist.
That's true, and I knew that when I picked this movie.
I was 1 year old.
But this film for me is like I don't think that any of my family watched this the year it came out. But because of this, where this film was, and kind of the future of Disney Channel movies and Disney Halloween movies, you know, it became a staple on the Disney Channel.
Until when? It
still is. I'm sure that this plays literally every Halloween on Disney Channel.
That's astonishing to me.
I have not watched Disney Channel in a few years, but I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if Hocus Pocus was not on that. Can somebody actually look that up while we're podcasting? But this film to me, like, is Halloween. Like, it is about the fun. It is about the scary. It is about the supernatural. It is about more than just the candy. It's about more than just the scary. It's all of it together in a really dorky, because Halloween is dorky, package. And my first, I don't know that I have a very specific memory of watching this for the first time, because I've probably seen this film like legitimately 30 times, because when there's like a movie that they play on Disney Channel for Halloween, like they don't just play it once. Like
it's like over and over.
Well, I mean, they have so many time slots to fill at night to watch Halloween movies. So like you can usually catch this movie, and I've probably watched this movie 20 times. And I am gonna fully admit, going into our review of this movie, that I am completely biased. It is my favorite movie. I understand that there are issues with it, but it is absolutely my favorite Halloween movie of all time. With that being said, Paddy B, our guest, our main man.
Yeah.
Give us do you remember your first time watching this movie?
I think I'm with you there, that I don't really there isn't a first time for this one. this movie I love. It is near and dear to my heart. I do have Rocky Horror above this movie.
Hey man, you're a grown man. Like you.
True. Yeah. But
Grown man. The level of sensuality in these films is like comparable. I'm telling you.
What I'd say my initial spoiler free analysis of it is it has something for everyone in this movie. There are aspects for children, and there's plenty for adults.
Don't you wish that all the Disney Channel original movies had this level of stuff for the adults? Like, I've gone back and watched a lot of Disney movies, Disney Channel movies that I loved as a kid and as an adult. And I gotta say that, like, they don't have this, like this is like Lion King level of fun for everyone. Versus, like, some of these are just made for, like, 15-year-olds and below.
Yeah, it's a real... so, fun fact, the director of this movie also directed the High School Musical series, Kenny Ortega. So it's kind of a stark difference between something for everyone and, High School Musical.
Hyper-targeted audience.
Yes, very this thing. Yeah.
So what do you, so with it being this love for you, do you give us did you watch it again before the podcast? I should ask that too.
Yes. So Shelly and I watched it this weekend.
So before you go into, because we're gonna get into, like, we all just watched it, like, so yeah. What do you remember about this film? Like, what were your first impressions of it compared to your initial watch? Like, you're saying it's number 2 for you, like it's up there all time. What got it there for you?
A lot of it is family tradition, like because it was one of my mom's favorites. It became like part of our Halloween like lineup of movies that we'd always watch. It was funny. I come from a very musical household. So the music and stuff was important. Like my opinion is the "I Put a Spell on You" that is in this musical, or in this, is the best like version of that song, and it's also not available anywhere.
Wow!
And also,
like, it's not an actual like recorded track. It's one of my peeve things.
Also, can we be clear that it is also the quote unquote the best quote unquote Halloween song of all time? Like, before we get in,
like, there are a lot of good Halloween songs.
Better than Thriller, better. Yeah, I'm going there. Like, you don't understand my love for this movie. Paddy B, it sounds like you have like a more down to earth acceptance of this film than me, while also just loving it. And I really appreciate and love that, because I wish that I could do that with this film. But one of the things for me is I grew up in a very religious household.
Same here.
And so for me, my parents taught basically that Halloween was bad. And that's like, and so because of stigmas that their parents had and things like that growing up, and Wes, you grew up in a religious household too, so I'm curious if this impacted you.
Not in any way that would affect anything like this, no.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in a secular household because
it
was
fair,
a faith household, so faith couldn't be made the central issue.
Got it. So for me, like, there are certain parts of Halloween, like, I was taught that Halloween wasn't good, but as I've grown up and I've looked at things that I loved about Halloween, the things that I don't like are like commercialism. And it's funny because this movie actually takes a direct crap on commercialism in the film. So it's really cool to see other people share the kind of love that I have for this film, while also having reasonable thoughts about it instead of putting it on a pedestal that it probably doesn't deserve.
Yeah, my Halloween experience has always been like a positive one, because like I said, I come from a very musical household. Like do acting and stuff when I am able. And like the theater has been a big part of my life, and so I was always dressing up in costumes and
Can I ask you two a
stuff
question?
like that.
How old were both of you when you watched Rocky Horror Picture Show?
I didn't know it existed until after high school.
Okay.
I definitely caught snippets of it at some point in teenagerhood. I couldn't place where or for
Okay.
how long or which parts, but I
Sure.
definitely like came back to it like 18, 19.
Yeah, my first experience with it was in high school because Glee was huge at the time, and
Got it.
Glee did a Halloween like Rocky Horror thing.
I saw it
but I
just
didn't get,
before
like,
that Glee
actually into it
episode.
until after.
I actually saw it before the Glee episode, so the Glee episode made way more sense to me. West, your first impressions. You just watched this film.
Yeah, they're all first impressions. Honestly, you should let me go first because I could have had second impressions after hearing your first impressions because my sense of this film has already developed entirely just from hearing your first impressions.
that gives you more content later for what it's
Oh,
worth.
definitely. There's just a lot going on. But first impressions, well, the problem is that my brain can't process where it's been very well. It only knows where it is.
It's fair.
But first impressions for this movie, first, like, Halloween is the setting, right? They're in Salem, right?
Mhm.
But like,
Which is
there's
awesome.
one place. The place is Halloween, right? And it's a better execution of what the setting of Halloween looks like than any Christmas I've seen in any Christmas film.
Oh, it's perfect. It's
And
perfect.
any Halloween film that explicitly creates a Halloween, right? Like it's just like the American Halloween experience is just boiled right down to it, which I think is really cool. Other things I think that are pretty exciting about it, that like really just like came out at me are the Trio of Witches is just really classically done. Right, there's so much previous media out there that has a triad of hags, right? From Macbeth onward. Yeah, trihag, if you will. And I really liked the feel of their interaction, right? They fall into these tropes, right? There's the cunning leader who's mean to them. There's the bumbling one who can't do anything right, and then there's some reason the
one that has no idea what's going on.
No idea what's going on, wants to kiss every boy she sees, who also does everything wrong. So like it works really well, and I think I like how it's both like a fresh take on those archetypes of the witches, but still married.
You have to remember, this movie is 27 years old when you say that. You just said fresh take.
At that time?
Oh, I thought you were saying for you just now.
Shakespeare discussed the ideas of
witches,
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, that take then also was extremely, like, different, right? Like, they had a funnier dynamic, I think. It was really good, right? Like, as I watched this, I realized, like, those are the characters that the new Sabrina that Netflix did, that her aunts are based on.
I have not watched that show yet, but my wife loves it, so I'll probably watch it.
Well, yeah. So I love that callback of like this allusion to this idea of the three fates, right? That's really where it goes back to.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So normally we have a segment on this podcast when we review something called West Sells It, or sometimes I'll do it if I really want to be the one.
Though.
But when you literally post on social media, if you love this thing, come talk to me. I want you on my podcast. And the commissioner of your fantasy football league messages you, and you tell everyone else no. You have to let them sell it because
they're in their spot.
Exactly. So before we get into spoilers, Paddy B, if somebody wanted to pause this podcast right now and watch this movie, how would you sell it to them? Or pause this podcast and watch the movie right now. How would you sell it to them?
So I actually think West sold me on how to sell it. That this is the quintessential like Halloween movie for everybody. It's like the Halloween movie about the American Halloween experience. I hadn't really heard that kind of take before, and like why I feel the way I do about it. And I think it's because of tradition and that it.
I also had not heard
experience.
That was the best sell you could have given anything.
Yeah.
Like when you said, it is the American Halloween and it does it perfectly. I just completely agree. I think that, if you are listening to this podcast right now on iTunes or on Spotify or watching on YouTube, you haven't watched this movie yet, and you're just looking for a podcast to listen to, just pause this podcast, just watch the movie,
or save it for Halloween. It's only 11 days.
Yeah, exactly.
10,
I mean, who knows when this podcast will go up?
To this, but...
I was going to say, who knows when this podcast is going up? Could be 13 months. I don't know. But that's a joke because there's only 12. But I agree, Paddy. I think that we if you are a person who enjoys tradition, enjoys, just the tropes in this movie are so funny and full of actual care given to some of these things. You've got kids stealing candy. You've got all kinds of things that are just so, I don't know. American is actually kind of a good word for it. Like, I haven't experienced another Halloween, right? Like, I haven't experienced what Halloween is like in other places. I actually don't even know if Halloween exists in a ton of other places. But if you want to know, like, what American Halloween kind of looks like.
Part of it, too, I think, is why it, like...
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
I think part of what makes it also the American Halloween experience is, like, where it's set, too. Because it's set in Salem, right, where the witch trials happen, like, that only adds to, like... That's
it's
Halloween
funny
town.
As a theater kid, like, when we in high school we actually did, and I was on the production crew for, oh my gosh, what is the witch trial play?
The Crucible.
The Crucible. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I was gonna lose it. And like watching this as an older person who did the Crucible, and then also who studied the Crucible in English class, and then also in history studied the way, like, had to take a test on the Salem witch trials. Like, the whole thing is just, like, so cool. It is so cool. So,
except for the part where somehow the witches are still actually witches instead of totally trussed up charges against women they didn't like.
Hey. We don't get into the crimes of the past here. Watch the movie. It's really good. And it's spoiler time. So from here, we're going to be speaking freely. We're going to be deep diving. I'm going to talk about favorite storylines. We're going to let the guests go first from here on out. So, what storyline did you love most, or did you relate to, or did you just vibe with, Paddy B?
So the storyline that is one of my favorite is actually Billy Butcherson, the zombie that was in love with Winifred, falls in love with Sarah because everyone did, and is then has his own like freedom arc of being brought back to chase these kids down, and has a big screw you moment and makes his own path. I think that was a really cool arc. The thing that I like vibe with is Sarah hanging from everywhere.
I agree 100%. Sarah's like one of those characters where, like, no matter what the scene is about, where your attention is supposed to be, if Sarah is on camera, your attention is there because it's interesting. It's surprising. And that was me on the first watch, right? I'm sure you could do like a Sarah watch through.
Oh, sure, absolutely. It would be amazing. Never mind. I don't know if I can say this. I'm going to say it. This podcast might be full of hot takes because I think I have some and I think West has some. But I actually think this is Sarah Jessica Parker's best movie.
I have not seen that many Sarah Jessica Parker movies.
I watch a lot of...
I know that this is her best film. This is her best work. She doesn't remember it.
It is.
She was channeling something.
It is out of this world how well she nails down whatever this character is supposed to be. Like,
I would love to know how written her horniness was.
I want to know just, man, I might need to put like a PG or PG-13 rating on this podcast.
Well, yeah, that I think is the astonishing thing about this film is just how different our standards for what TV ratings are these days, right?
I cannot say what I want to say, but like, if you don't realize what's happening during Can You Feel the Love Tonight in The Lion King, you're probably under the age of 12. So, anyway, let's rewind. Because I actually want to bring up your favorite storyline. Because it was not until I watched the movie this time, Paddy B, like literally last Friday, when we watched it for Family Movie Night to prepare for this podcast, that I was like, wait a second. Why is Billy doing anything she says? Like, how did we even get to that starting point? So, do you, like... I have a theory, a fan theory. This is literally something I thought this week. Do you think that he needed to open his mouth to like break her spell? To where he could just act on his own? Like he sees the knife, he does it, and then he talks, and then all of a sudden he can do whatever he wants. Like he doesn't have to listen to her anymore.
So he's following the commands until then.
Yeah, that was my thought. Like, why else would you zip up his mouth anyway? Because I was trying to figure it out. I was like, he hates her. And then the second the knife comes out, he's like, yeah, let's go.
I wonder how much it has to do with, like, you know, like, one thing that happened to me is that I keep watching films that have a fantasy vibe where I'm just like, okay, 5e mechanics, tracking this, that makes sense, like, full on, like, every character in film these days for me is just a D&D character sometimes. And like thinking about it, right? Like it could be that like the spell only keeps the zombie under control for an hour, or like when you're brought back to life, the person who brings you back to life kind of has some sway just there in general, right? Your brain hasn't fully like awoken yet, right? You're just like, but like, you know, later he's got a more specific like set of interests and a vibe.
Interesting. Anyway, that was just my thoughts on the character in my most recent watch through. Wes, what about you? What was your favorite storyline just through this watch through?
I mean, my heart really went out for Sarah's like journey just to find a boy to kiss. Like she really felt like that was like you know, just
important
the sort of thing where like, well, like yeah, she was going over the next hill just to find that, right? But like clearly at the same time, it's pretty small. And like if it was my favorite storyline in total, I think that like I did spend too much of the movie paying attention to things that weren't totally where my attention wanted to be. And like I think that like there's a fantastic, touching sibling relationship that develops during this.
Yeah.
Right, like. When Binks is telling Max to, you know, make sure he protects his sister, right? Like, my first thought was like, shit, how many times have I let down my sister?
Oh, dude, you're gonna get into some future stuff for this episode, so hold that thought.
The family aspect's definitely there.
So I think that you know, when I think of my favorite storyline, it actually, I have a question for you two before I say what I'm about to say. Who do you guys think the main character of this film is?
Ooh, who would I say it's actually from the perspective of?
No, because I don't think that is a thing that exists in this film.
Sure,
but I would be curious who you believe is the main protagonist.
Can I tell you what I think the intended answer, and can I tell you what I think the answer should have been?
Absolutely.
I mean, this movie came out in 1993. The teenage guy was going to be the protagonist in terms of how it came across, right? Max is absolutely the written protagonist. But honestly, either of the women that save his butt every time, Allison and Danny, both like come to the rescue every time, right? Like, and like, I do not think truer words could be said other like than when Allison is accused of being a white witch.
Interesting.
Right? Like, I think I tell you, I think Allison goes on to have like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer style career immediately after this film.
That is fair. Paddy B, before I say what my favorite storyline is, I'm curious your answer too.
Yeah, so it tracks that you follow Max throughout the entire night's experience. I would still say Max, just because like you start with him, and these other characters influence the story and his experience of the Halloween, but he's the constant that everything kind of revolves around.
So, for what it's worth, before I give my answer, I want to drop a hot take that R2-D2 is actually the main protagonist of the first 6 films of Star Wars. And in that same vein,
it's a pretty inarguable.
I also think it's inarguable, but I promise you, if you drop a Star Wars hot take, people will attack you.
Who's telling the frame story at the end, right? Like that's the real question.
But Zachary Binks is one of the most. Oh man, I might cry talking about this movie. But like, legitimately, he is so loving, so caring, and he is like the character I follow throughout this film.
Sure, that makes sense.
And it's so funny because, and it's, to be fair, I've also seen this film, like I said, like probably over 20 times. So like, it doesn't even register to me that somebody would look at Max as the main character, because like, as somebody who was raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, or not even Salt Lake City, like outskirts of Salt Lake City, Utah, Max is not a relatable character to me, like at all. He is like, when I was a young boy, I thought Max was an idiot. I was like, you're just so stupid. And as an adult, I also think Max is an idiot. So like, nothing has changed on my opinion.
Well, that's people's general opinion of Californians, but that's another argument.
That's not what I mean. It has nothing to do with the fact that he came from California as much as it's just like, it's just, I don't know.
That's his thing, right? Is they poke at that, actually.
Paddy B trying to align himself with the bullies here.
No, it's like they make fun of his like California tie-dye at the beginning of the movie.
Well, that's not what I mean. I just mean like just being objectively disrespectful of other people, right? And
okay. Here's my theory.
Like, as a young kid who was raised in a very strict household, I just saw that and I was like, well, I don't relate to this. Like, why would you purposefully try to hurt other people? And, even as a teenager, like, I got Max's points that he said in the film, but I never was like, I relate to Max. Whereas with Binks, it was like, oh, Binks also hates X, Y, and Z, but also just wants to do the right thing. And so Binks' storyline to me was like, I think even when I was a kid, I remember caring a lot about, Binks' story. So.
Okay, I got a question.
Go for it.
Do you think Binks spent any of the 300 years in Cats? The show?
No, I don't think that he spent any time in Cats. And
I think he could have been like one of the cats that like followed Mr. Mistopheles around. I think like they would have fit pretty well together.
With that being said, let's move on to the things you might change. Paddy B, as it says, our guests are going to go first. Is there anything you would change about this film? To be fair, we already know how biased I am, and there is some things I would change. Yeah,
this is going to be more of a West segment. But I do wish that they had had a resolution for the bullies story, because the last time
do you want a redemption for them
in cages?
Do you want a redemption for them, West?
Me?
I don't even care. I just want to know that they're not just
they gave them a chance for redemption.
Sure.
Hold on, time out. This is a low budget film. These characters did not matter, but they gave them a chance for redemption by them apologizing to what I believe they were calling Hollywood in the film. And the redemption was not accepted. Like they were not
They had the chance.
He took his shoes back.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Take a guy's shoes. He's not letting you out of that
Wes,
cage.
do you want
Nikes, fresh.
them to get a redemption?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
Paddy B, do you want them to get a redemption?
Generally, I want people to, but their story was so awkward that just like I almost didn't care.
It's funny because
At some points, it's weird.
I
It's
think
weird.
that this
Their
is an
own
everybody
grave.
segment because I actually think everybody might change the bullies in some way except for West. So I'm going to go next. And I hate the bullies. I don't understand their motivation. I don't understand, like, even if they're just bad kids, I'm just like, how do you have kids that are so bad in a film that, to Paddy's B point, you don't just say, like, what happens? Like, these kids are found in these cages and left there. Like, even if it's a post-credit scene, like, that would be a post-credit scene today.
It would have been a great
For sure.
post-credit scene. I'm not going to deny that.
And,
No,
it's so upsetting because you're like, you cheer on Max for just taking his shoes back. Like, absolutely. Like, do not let people walk all over you. You shouldn't do that. You need to stand up for yourself and stand up against people that are bullying others. And we don't need to accept this kind of behavior. And you cheer for Max in that moment. I did it as a kid. I do it now. I believe that Max didn't need to do that. But at the same time, you still want these people to figure this out and to improve. And for me, the bullies are 100% the thing I would change.
I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, and I think that I can only do this because it is a film. Like, if those were real life children in front of me, I think I would want something very different for them. But they are fortunately caricatures of people, like most characters in this film are. And at the point where they are saying only the ugly chicks stay out late, they dug their own grave. Like, we don't need to go back for them. The witches took them. I didn't really need to know more. Like, they could have eaten them, and I think that would have been a great outcome too.
But it would have been a finale, right? Though, like, it would have closed the loop, closed the circle there.
Sure, like you're just upset that it was left open ended.
Yeah,
I think that like it could have been a lesson learned type of story for the film to tell, and I think that's fine. The problem is that these kids are just sitting in cages, and you don't know that they learned their lesson. Like, they're apologizing to Max, but like, does Max taking his shoes back be like, all right, well,
Make the difference?
Yeah, like, I just don't even know. And I think that, like I said, I think that it should have been a post-credit scene. Also, I don't know that those, like, existed in 1993.
Not really, but, I mean, we might be getting, like, here's the, like, positive side of that is we might actually be getting...
Hocus Pocus 2.
We might see that, yeah. That thing might be happening, so... We might get the resolution that I'm searching for, and then this movie would be like perfect and stuff. So,
oh man,
if you think it's gonna be like it's their kids or something.
Oh man, if you get the resolution to this in Hocus Pocus 2, it is the best sequel. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. With that being said, West, Paddy B and I have the same thing. So, what would you change?
What would I change if I could like just change one aspect of the film? Can I like
you already told the patrons,
or does it still have to come out in 1993?
It still has to come out in 1993, and you already told the patrons one thing you would change.
That one's a bonus one. That one's like a tiny little one.
All right.
That one's just like pure gag. I think I would change like I don't know, like why do these things always have to be structured around a heterosexual couple? Why always? Every single time.
Well, it did come out in 1993.
That's what I'm saying. Like, am I allowed to change that? Like,
I don't know. I don't. It is.
But also, I love that. I think those two characters learned a lot more from that experience about each other than I like you, which I think is really powerful as well.
Yeah, it was a lot of learning moments for the couple, but it is interesting that that's the thing that you would change.
It's the thing I would change about every piece of media I've ever seen, Spencer. Is I would.
Oh man, you better plug your ears. You better plug your ears if you're not caught up on Korra right now. Plug your ears because Wes, we're in the middle of the Korra review.
Yeah.
So not every piece of media would you change that about.
Well, that one fixes it.
Okay. With that being said, Paddy B, you are the guest. What is your favorite thing, line, moment in this film? Like, what is your favorite thing about this film?
Oh man, there are so many. I think it's more of a sum of all the little things that it does. Like the French talking about a book. I some of the things we've gone over, like Sarah hanging everywhere. The first line is just like it encapsulates how I feel about mornings. Where it's, I don't know if you can see, if you're watching the YouTube video. I have a mug that has the opening line where it's oh look, another glorious morning. Makes me sick.
This film, it's true. It has so many little moments.
Yeah.
Can you give us your favorite character?
This is kind of a weird thing. He's like one of the smallest characters, but the guy who, like, seeing it now as an adult, he's become one of my favorite characters.
Is it the police officer? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The dude who's just like the chick is going.
I love that too. That's really funny.
I agree. It's way funnier as an adult. Like, as a kid, you're like, why would you do that? But as an adult, you're like kind of laughing. You're like, I would totally do that. I would just totally do that. I agree. For what it's worth,
I am that character.
For what it's worth, I'm not gonna pick Binks because he is my favorite character, and I think it's a cop out because, like, I want to be more like Binks. Like, as a human, I think if we were all more like Binks, the world would just be a better place. And so by default, he's my favorite character. My second favorite character is just Mary. Like, I love Mary.
Yeah, she's good.
I want to hug her and be like, hey, do you want to just leave your sister? Like, you can live in my basement rent free. I'll help you, like, do whatever you need to do to be happy, and, like, let's work together. Like, that is what when I look at Mary, that is what I want to do.
You
like,
think you could fix Mary in a
I
way
don't know
you
that I could fix her,
or like you could give her she could fix herself.
Oh, absolutely.
If she was removed from her influence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the same thing is true of Sarah. Like,
it's true of every depiction of these three characters.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
everyone connects with a witch. If
Sarah Sanderson didn't have Winnie in front of her, she would also just drastically improve as a human.
Well, we see that, like, all the time.
Absolutely.
The
film. Every time they have a moment away from Winnie, they improve.
I think a good moment that illustrates that is when she sees Binks and Allison, like, behind the dumpster hidden.
Yeah.
And is being, like, just called by Winifred, like, hey, why are you slowing down? Come on.
Can I tell you something? I did not realize that she actually saw them until I watched it on Friday.
Think so.
Until I watched it on Friday, I did not think she actually saw them, and then I realized she did on Friday.
Yeah, and then you realize all she does is just follow Winifred around and do what she's told, like, literally told, and nothing else matters to her. Like she, like, the entire world around her, like, if it's not, like, the clear, like, one thing in her mind, like, it just vanishes into the aether.
Yeah, I think Mary is adorable, and I want Mary to be happy and live a productive life. And I wish that I could make Mary's life better, and Mary is, like, one of my favorite characters. Before I go into my favorite part line or whatever, I want you to answer the same question, Wes. What is your favorite character?
Oh, my favorite character? I think that, like, I just had so much fun watching Sarah the whole time.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Just, like, 3,000,000% hilarious. Like, I don't know. Like, I was like, that's funny. Okay, yeah, I get that one. Like, the bus driver scene.
when she's on his lap honking the horn, or another. Yeah, that one's great. That
Oh,
one's
God.
great.
When
I
Billy
think
loses his fingers.
I think to go back to the question that I asked Paddy B, my favorite line moment, kind of whatever. It's hard not to say just the "I Put a Spell on You" song. Like it's weirdly, this movie's kind of weird, right? Because you have this is like the climax of the film. Like everything is going as poorly as possible for these characters, but then
it's
you
also
think they
emotionally
win.
the highest point of the entire film.
Yeah, it's also the highest point, and then you think they win, and then you realize they don't win, and then it has an immediate they win like 5. I mean, it was so funny. West tells me before this podcast, he's like, I have 12 minutes left of this film, and I was like, where are you at? And he tells me, I was like, oh. He's like, yeah, I think this is all that's basically left to happen. I was like, oh man, there's like a lot more.
You're like, just
That
keep
12
watching.
minutes does a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because, like, to me, that is the moment. Like, that is the peak. Like, when you realize how hopeless these kids feel, they've talked to what they believe is the police officers, they've talked to their parents, nobody's going to believe them, and now the witches have taken over the city, and you don't know what's next. And also, it's so hype, and you just want to dance to it. It's my favorite part of the film, but my favorite storyline is still Binks.
Yeah, and I still connect with Winifred. Like, she's actually like my favorite of the sisters, just because she's so sharp and witty, and I always admired those qualities. And
yeah.
She has some of the best lines because she talks the most.
Well, I think that's one of the really interesting parts of the Three Witches as like a character trope, is they collectively have a good person in them. Like they collectively have all of the positive traits you would look for in an awesome person. They just don't each have all of it, and they also have a million flaws.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool because it like you can watch each of them, and if you're watching for like moral lessons, they have them, right? And that's how the Three Witches appear as like guides at times, right?
Yeah.
In stories. And when they're the villains, right, they still have those virtues, and they channel them all the time, but they just channel them in this direction that goes a completely different way because it's guided by their flaws.
We have a new segment this week. Usually we would go over our ratings and things like that. But I wanted to add something that I'd like to do in reviews moving forward, and that's just kind of fun facts and tidbits about the show. Go ahead, West.
I just raised my hand for those who are listening to audio because Spencer forgot to give us our chance to say our favorite scenes.
Oh, you can do that too. Did I take that out of there?
I had one I was saving.
Oh, go for it.
That moment where Danny and her mother run into each other at the party is priceless.
Oh, dude, it's so funny.
Oh yeah,
that moment where mom.
What are you supposed to be, Madonna?
Like,
don't
like,
you think
mom
so?
is just calculating like, what on earth do I tell my kid? Like, I had never imagined this conversation. I purposely worked so that they would not see me like this, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, whatever.
It's so funny too because
kind of the truth, kind of not. Do I look pretty?
West, I don't know. Like, I remember the first time that I saw that outfit for Madonna.
Fair, yeah.
And I don't know if you do.
I definitely don't. Like, I definitely like would have missed that cultural reference.
And as a kid, that's the first place I saw that outfit.
Oh,
like, what is that?
Oh man, now I'm forgetting. But like, it is a very distinct Madonna outfit from the 80s. And I'm pretty sure my aunt, for what
it was
worth,
almost certainly like
I'm pretty sure it was on the back of a Madonna record that my aunt had.
Oh, sure.
So when I was listening to records with my aunt, I'm pretty sure it was on the back of that. Because my mom actually didn't listen to Madonna. Fun fact. So I'm pretty sure the first time I saw that was with my aunt. So anyway, that's funny that you said that. I'll do mine really quick. My favorite scene. I mean, Paddy B already said his for what it's worth because it was the Billy scene, right?
I don't think so. I mean, for me, it wasn't any specific favorite thing. It was the sum of all of its parts.
Oh, sure.
little things that
Yeah.
make it my favorite.
Yeah. Definitely, the attention to detail is incredible in this film.
Like we talked about the other thing of mine that was like a favorite is the broom, the backup brooms.
My favorite is the vacuum for what it's worth. Like it's easily my favorite scene is that scene. Like it also I think does a really good job of explaining the relationship for the sisters. Like where Sarah might care that her thing looks like a broom, but like
it's not.
But Mary's just like, no, let's go, guys. Like, let's do our thing. I don't.
Yeah, it also like raises like semantic question. Like, okay, in this spell for material components, what is it actually? Does it need a stick? Does it need a cleaning device? Does it need like a long cleaning? Like, I'm fascinated by this question.
I'm
Absolutely.
so glad. Please leave a comment. Tell us how you think that Mary flew on that vacuum. With that being said,
I'd also like to know, like, is Mary the only one of them that could have done it? Right? Like, what if it's your perspective of the thing that makes it possible to fly on it as if it was a broom, right? Like, Winifred is so rigid, right? And Sarah is so abstract. Mm-hmm. So, like, what is this thing in its, like, essence or whatever, right? Whereas, like, Mary, I think, like, is willing to see things as what they are. Which is like, I have to use this thing.
With that being said, I will drop the first fun fact. This movie had a massive budget cut. Like, absolutely massive. And I am really, really impressed what they did with this film considering those budget cuts. And it's one of my favorite films. Paddy B, you have any fun facts or tidbits you want to drop?
Yeah. So, couple things. This movie was released in 1993 and set in that same year, but it actually wouldn't have worked for that calendar year because Halloween fell on a Sunday. So, like, the being in school that same day thing couldn't have happened that year.
My next one would be that I tried to check this while we were podcasting, but I actually couldn't find stuff on Zachary Binks, but I believe that the voice of Zachary Binks is not the guy playing him as a human.
That is correct.
Yes, those are separate, and I think it's actually with a T. I think you're saying. I think it is Thackeray. T-H-A-C-K.
Oh, is it Thackeray Binks?
It's Thackeray Binks.
Oh man, that's my Utah accent coming into play. Let's go.
It's all good.
That actually might be why I can't find it because I was control Fing during the show.
So the fountain that they sell, like when they're partying after they cremate the witches in the kiln at the high school, it's the Friends fountain. Like it's in the Friends opening.
Oh my gosh! Really?
Yeah. I'm looking at the photo on the article, but it's uncanny.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. Let's go on to final review, final rating. So on this podcast, Paddy B, we rate things on a scale of 0, meaning you should not watch this, consume this. We did a disservice to ourselves by consuming this
We wouldn't
content.
have made this episode.
Like, this was so bad, we had to make an episode about it. Like,
that's how I feel right now, Spencer.
You shouldn't bring more light to a certain thing. Whoa.
2.5 to you would not change a single thing about it, and it was a complete work of perfection, with 3 being, that was good. So where would you, Paddy B, and you can use 0.5s, where would you rate this film?
I was not going to ask permission for the 0.5s. I was going to give it a 4.5. That you should definitely watch this movie.
Yeah, I think that I'm at the same place. Like, obviously, if I could redo this movie, it's almost hard, though, because, like, if you redo this movie with, like, the budget it was given, does it end up with the same love that I have for this film? I think the answer is yes. I think that the jobs done by the witches, the jobs done by Thackeray Binks, like, I think that they do it together. But I'm agree. It's a 4.5. I think that there are, like I said, the bullies just like were so cringe for me, especially as an adult. I could not give this movie a 5, but it is my favorite Halloween movie, and you should definitely watch it. West.
It's always hard. First off, I think that this film, like, I don't think anything about its like release and like the conditions around its release could change. Like, I don't think this film is what it is if it's released in a different decade, on a different budget, for a different audience, under a different decade's audience ratings, and like what they can get away with and who they're trying to play to if they are that rating. So I think that like it might just be like a masterpiece of 1993.
Sure.
Right, like
early 90s.
It distills this early, yeah, totally. It distills this early 90s vibe that like other films definitely achieve. But like this one, like it steps out of 80s, right? Like 80s is clearly left behind in a way that like you can see very visibly. Yeah. I give it a 4. And I give it room to grow. Right, like I don't think I ever give things like a 5 if it's my first like time watching it or whatever.
Will you watch this next year for Halloween?
I think I'll watch it this Halloween.
You're gonna watch it again?
Why not?
I plan to.
I can't think of a Halloween movie I'd rather watch this Halloween.
We
also have like a lot more time to take in, Halloween media.
I also like took in this film like I was trying to like cram for a test.
Sure. So
I'd love to also have a more relaxed single sitting viewing of it as well.
I love to hear it. Before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much to Paddy for coming on today. Thank you for being the commissioner of our Discord's Fantasy Football League. We'll make sure to give you that title again as many times as you'll accept it. With that being said,
wait till see if you win yet, Spencer. If you win, that's how you feel. If you lose, you never want him again.
I'm still in first place. It's fine. With
I'm coming for you.
But I also want to just kind of say, like, every at the end of the show, as we wrap up, like, I think we all loved this film, and it's because it is adorable, and it does teach you how to just care about other people when you look at Thackeray Binks, and that's an important lesson to teach, especially around the time where things can be so commercialized and so not about caring about the kids, not about caring about the right things. And I think this film actually does have an important lesson in it. So don't forget to vote. By the time this podcast is up, you should probably be voting. Figure out what you need to do that. Whether whoever you're voting for, whatever you're voting for.
This specifically applies to our American audience temporally.
Yeah, exactly.
It is my understanding, Spencer, that we have an interesting international audience.
It is true. It is true. We should call that out, that this does apply to our American audience. With that being said, though, I think that we want to say that before we say anything else. Don't forget to go to patreon.com/HeezyGameMedia if you want the early access content, things like that. And there will be a link for the Discord in every show moving forward so that you can join the Discord too and be part of the conversations going on there. Thank you so much, Paddy B. Thank you so much, West. Let's say goodbye, folks.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Who lives under a train?